Video 60. September 1, 2011. Mythi. Some friends are asking, in 3 occasions Elenin alignment with the Earth and other planets in our solar system inclusive with the Sun, large earthquakes occurred. The Elenin actually had an active participation in this context? Friends, indeed these effects are not the Elenin itself but an addition with the dwarf star coming back the same route. The dwarf star is a little solar system very massive, and its gravitational shock wave is felt well ahead of its path because it is only coming in this direction to be interacting directly with the Sunday. There is a tunnel of gravity keeping the dwarf star and your solar system laced throughout the extensive travels that it orbits. This tunnel becomes gravitationally more influential in inverse proportion to the distance between them. The Elenin possessed a gravitational effect proportional to its size. But it was not enough to cause this kind of reaction alone. He was acting like a spearhead, which only has all the force due to the weight of a rod that comes back. Mythi. Much has been said about the destruction of the comet Elenin. It was even destroyed. They said the blast of energy came from the direction of Jupiter. Friends, Jupiter was more than 50 away and across the Sun at that time. It has no logic. It may be that Jupiter was within the bidimensional image field of your probe, but in another orbital quadrant. The spacecraft KruliansReducedEleninSize stood behind the comet in its exact orbit line, and fired. The Elenin comet was reduced by the KruliansReducedEleninSize burst of energy. It lost 90% of his coma and all the material that had gathered in the asteroid belt. Thousands of tons of debris were removed and a large volume of harmful gases and the comet nucleus was broken into 2 parts. This greatly diminished the gravitational load of the set and avoided a major bombardment with large asteroids in their passage on Earth. Its orbit has changed by increased speed somewhat with the explosion, and it will move a little closer to the Earth, but this should not pose a big problem. Still smaller pieces will regroup attracted by the energy field of the comet and the devices you have in orbit may be destroyed. The timing of events was also retained. Community Galactica spaceships are following this process closely. Several ships Reptilian are also watching the events on the route between your upper atmosphere and Mars. Transmissions between the mission KruliansReducedEleninSize and command of the base Antarctic began a few days ago in open frequency for everyone to know the operation and avoid the area. Mythi. You can tell if this is part of a communication between spacecraft KruliansReducedEleninSize. These sounds were picked up by radio telescopes as coming from Elenin. I cannot understand what they are saying, but by that tone of voice, it seems an automatic transmission of KruliansReducedEleninSize. Warning of the danger of this area of operations. As I mentioned, the communications were open to everyone to withdraw from the areas where the scrap could be launched at high speed after the shooting. And on the dwarf star, what is really happening to it? The dwarf star is in approach of the Sun, approximately 38 days apart. A large spacecraft KruliansReducedEleninSize returned to stand behind the dwarf star. They must be on scientific observation to Community Galactica. Your probes should begin to see that approach in the next month if your government to release the images to the public. The planets of the dwarf star will be the first to be seen with the naked eye. After dwarf star passing a beam of the Sun until late October, the solar system will be seen in its entirety. Should line up between Earth and the Sun in late November and pass close to Earth by December. The events will take place this timing, if the parameters of speed and gravitational force remain constant. Mythi, some members asked about the ICD, that it actually represents. The Intergalactic Certificate of Decontamination is an approval given by a team of researchers, in which they ratify the total eradication of various types of diseases aliens who are liable to contagion. In this case, you are the aliens. It will also be analyzed and quantified the level of friendly relations of your society. You have nothing that we cannot treat and eradicate, so this certificate will be issued without problems. After the stabilization of your new society, it exists to protect everyone, and it means the official passage from one colony to the intergalactic level of relationship. Every society that relates to other of the Community Galactica has such a certificate. Teams and crews visiting colonies not certified, take appropriate precautions for decontamination, but for which there is a relationship open to any breed, it is necessary to be classified as a partnership level 1 and have a certificate from the corresponding Community Galactica. Spacecrafts and many different phenomena has appeared in different parts of the world. Something special is happening? As I mentioned earlier, the traffic here is very loaded at this time. Many teams of scientific tourism, several humanoid societies has been studying the planets. Reactions to these changes in frequency and state of equilibrium, much is being broadcast in real time to several solar systems of several galaxies. Behavioral studies of society humanoid, geophysical effects, geomagnetic and chemicals, the resulting period of stabilization of the planet, ending collections of flora and fauna, among other scientific activities. In addition to this movement, we have fleets of service. As our permanent geophysical research, the Pleiadians in the area of security, Arcturians in the marine biosphere, Krulians as the patrol of the solar system planetary orbital, etc. Not to mention the reptilians providing specific services to your government. If some of you do not believe these natural events scheduled to your planet, such as advice, I recommend staying quiet. Talk to others without warning, explaining that should only be taken pre-established attitudes. If they begin to see the dwarf star among the media begin to speculate, NASA begin to deny, you will have at least a week to carry out your plans until your governments to initiate containment measures in urban areas. Keep your affairs but always observing the events. From there you are now enlightened enough to take the initiatives plausible to leave the big cities and coastal area, seeking refuge on higher ground. You will lose just a bit of time researching the need for your family. You can refuse to believe all this, but a man forewarned is forearmed. If nothing happens, imagine that all the shelters built by your government is to save space on the surface. nothing more than urban development. I cannot be more clear and direct than I am being now. Remember that when there is no remedy, we try to avoid getting sick.